Hello everybody, and hope you're doing well today. Thank you for joining me, and today's daf is Bava Kamma 89 Amud A. So carrying on from the last daf, Idi Bar Abin said, we learn about of the ordinance of Ushan the Breiter. If witnesses said, we testify about so and so, that he divorced his wife and gave her the full value of the obligation recorded in the marriage contract, and she is under him and serves him. What does that mean? And she's under him. If she had been divorced and had not received payment of a marriage contract, then the conspiring witnesses are required to pay her the entire sum of the marriage contract, Rashi, and served him, i.e. that she was in fact still married to him. And then the witnesses were found to be conspiring witnesses who were attempting to deny this woman the ability to ever collect payment of a marriage contract. Then the court does not say that the witnesses shall pay the entire value of a marriage contract. Rather, the court says that they shall pay the financial advantage of a marriage contract. The Gemara explains what is the financial advantage of a marriage contract. The court evaluates. The woman cannot sell her marriage contract outright because in the event that she would predecease her husband, he would never have to pay it. Since she is able to sell only the possible gains realized if her husband were to predecease her, or if they were to be divorced, there must be an evaluation of what the value of that sale would be, as the potential future gains depend on several variables, e.g., the relative chance that he or she would die first, and the state of their marriage in general. How much a person would want to give to purchase the rights of this woman's marriage contract, taking into account the halacha that if she becomes widowed or divorced, the purchaser will receive its full value. But if she died during her husband's lifetime, her husband will inherit her property, and the purchaser will receive nothing. Idi Bar Avin continues, if it would enter your mind that there is no ordinance of Usha, why would her husband inherit from her? Let the woman sell her marriage contract entirely. Without the ordinance of Usha, the woman could sell all of her uniform property. Therefore, the conspiring witnesses would need to reimburse her for all of the definite gains she could have realized. Abai said this is not a proof for the existence of the ordinance of Usha, because if there is no ordinance, and the sages said that the woman retains the right to sell with regard to individual property, well, they also said the woman retains the right to sell with regard to guaranteed property. Property that return to the woman in the event of divorce or husband's death are comprised of two elements: useful property and guaranteed property. Useful property is property that is brought into the marriage by the wife that remains under her ownership. The husband has the right to garner the profits generated by that property, and he manages the property during the course of their marriage as well. He is not liable to pay compensation to his wife in the event that the value of the property decreases. Guaranteed property as well is brought into the marriage by the wife. The value of the property at the time of the marriage is listed in the marriage contract, and that amount is returned to the woman in the event of the husband's death or if they divorce. Items considered guaranteed property are referred to in the Talmud as Son Barzel, literally iron sheep, as the value for the wife remains fixed and does not decrease, just as iron does not deteriorate, which is listed among the possessions she brought into the marriage, but is entirely under her husband's authority. In any event, there is property that she does not have the right to sell, and that the husband would inherit if she dies, regardless of whether or not there is an ordinance of Usha. So the marriage contract could not be sold for its full value. Abai said, with regard to financial advantage, since discussion of this matter came to us, let us say something about it. The money received for selling the financial advantage is given only to the wife. If a woman sold the financial advantage of either her marriage contract or properties constituting her dowry, husband has no right either to the money that she received in return or to the profits generated by that money. Shulchan Ibn Ezra 85:7. For if it enters your mind to say that it is given to the husband, then let us conspiring witnesses who have been rendered liable to pay a penalty to the wife say to her, what loss have we caused you by testifying that you received the payment of your marriage contract? Even if you were to sell it for the financial advantage, your husband would have taken it from you. Rav Shalman said in response, she still would incur loss, because there is a gain to the household. Even if the husband were to be the one to receive the payment for the sale, the financial situation of the household will be improved, leading to a concrete benefit for the wife as well. This offsets the wife's potential loss. Rava said the halacha is that the money received for selling the financial advantage of the marriage contract is given only to the wife, And the opponent does not even garner the profits from that money or from property the wife would purchase with that money. Was the reason the state instituted that the profits of a property are for her husband, but they did not institute that the profits of the profits are for him. When Rav Papa and Rav Huna, son of Rav Yeshua, came from the study hall to Rav, they said, "We learn in a source for the ordinance of Usher in the Mishnah in 87a. With regard to a slave or married woman, an account with them is disadvantageous, since one who injures them is liable. But if they were the ones who injured others, they are exempt, because they did not have the money with which to pay. If an entity might say there is no ordinance of Usher, there would be a method by which a married woman can obtain money with which to pay, as the court can have her sell her usufruct property and give the money received to the one she injured. It can therefore be inferred from the Mishnah that a woman cannot sell her useful property in accordance to the ordinance of Usher." The Gemara responds, "And according to your reasoning, though indeed there is an ordinance of Usher, and she cannot fully sell her useful property, she should nevertheless be able to sell her useful property for the financial advantage. Either the purchaser will pay her for the future rights of the property in the event she gets divorced or is widowed, and she will give that money to the one she injured. Rather, it must be that the Mishnah is discussing a case where she does not have useful property of which she can sell the future rights. So too, there is no source from the Mishnah for the ordinance of Usher, as the Mishnah is discussing a case where she does not have useful property to sell. The moral question is the ruling of the Mishnah. Why does the Mishnah assert that a married woman will not have money with which to pay, but she should sell the financial advantage of a marriage contract and give the money received to the one who she injured? The Gemara answers, in accordance with whose opinion is this ruling of the Mishnah? It is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Meir, who says that it is prohibited for a man to remain living together with his wife. It is prohibited for a man to remain living with his wife even for 1 hour if she does not have a marriage contract. If she sold the financial advantage of a marriage contract to others, the couple may continue to live together, as he will not easily divorce her. In that case, there is no need for him to give her a new marriage contract. Ram Sefer Nashim, Hilchot Yishud 10:10, 11:17, and Sefer Nezikin, Hilchot Hover Mazik 4:18, Shulchan Aruch Ibn Ezra 266 3 105 1 424:10. Even for 1 hour without her having a marriage contract. Therefore, the woman cannot sell the financial advantage of a marriage contract. The Gemara asks, and what is the reason for the ruling of Rabbi Meir? Is it so that she will not be demeaned in his eyes, so that he will easily divorce her, as she would not suffer any adverse financial consequences by divorcing? And the Gemara asks, if that is the reason, then here, when she sold the marriage contract to others, the husband will not easily divorce her, and as he would divorce her, those who power the marriage contract will come and collect the payment of the marriage contract from the husband. It makes no difference to the husband whether he will have to pay the marriage contract to her or to the purchaser. Therefore, the reason for the ruling of the Mishnah cannot be based on the statement of Rabbi Meir. Rather, the reason is she is not required to sell the financial advantage of a marriage contract to pay the one she injured, is that the financial advantage of a marriage contract is mere words, i.e. not a specific possession, but a legal entity that simply creates the possibility to collect its value at a later date. And mere words are not mortgaged for the payment of debts. In this case, a debt to the injured party. The Gemara questions the decision. Why not? Why is the financial advantage not mortgaged? Their words are sold for dinars. Since the financial advantage of a marriage contract has a market value, it is mortgaged to pay the debt to the injured party. Rather, she is not required to sell the financial advantage of a marriage contract because the statement of Shmuel. As Shmuel says, with regard to one who sells a promissory note, the only committee dispute the reason for this law, and the dispute has had lack of ramifications. Tosfot right that one can acquire a promissory note from another only by rabbinic law, and therefore the seller has the right to forgive the debt. And therefore, an heir whose right to promissory note is by Torah law can forgive the debt as well. An entirely different opinion is cited by the Rif. He quotes an explanation that the lender can claim that he noticed upon further research that the debt has been previously paid. The Rif rejects this explanation as the phrase "when Bachling forgave" indicates that he is not claiming that the debt was paid. The Rav explains that the debtor has a right to say to the purchaser and of the document that he had never agreed to obligate himself to anyone other than the one who lent him the money. Consequently, the latter is still considered to be the address for the payment of the debt, and he may forgive it if he so chooses. To another, one who sells a promissory note to his friend and then forgives the debt is forgiven. Even one who inherits the original lender can forgive the debt. On the Sefer Kinyan Hilchot Mechira 6:12, Sefer Nezikin Hilchot Hover Mazik 7:10, Shulchan Aruch Mishpat 66:23, 66:32, and 386:1. until the seller went back and forgave the debtor his debt, it is forgiven, and the promissory note is left valueless, since it essentially had a non-transferable obligation to the creditor alone, and even the seller's heir can forgive the debt. Since there is concern that the woman will forgive the debt of a marriage contract after having sold it, causing the loss to the purchaser, she is not required to sell it. The sages say, let her sell the financial advantage of the marriage contract and give the money to one she injured, and if she happens to forgive the debt of a marriage contract to her husband, she will forgive it. Just as it is generally permitted for one to sell a promissory note despite the fact that he could then forgive the debt, the same should hold true in this case as well. The sages say, in a matter that will engender a benefit to her husband, she will certainly forgive the debt to him, and will cause him, and he will not have to pay the marriage contract. And with regard to causing a definite loss to that purchaser through direct action by having the woman sell the financial advantage to a marriage contract, in a case which she will certainly forgive the debt, the sage will not be willing to cause a definite loss to the purchaser. The Gemara offers another suggestion, and if you would say that she should sell a marriage contract to the one to whom she injured in order to receive the money for the financial advantage, so that even if she would forgive the debt of a marriage contract with regard to her husband, the one she injured will not lose anything, as well she is not giving him any payment. One could respond that ultimately in any matter that will engender benefit to her husband, she will certainly forgive the debt with regard to him. And we do not trouble the courts to supervise the sale of the financial advantage without cause. That moved on to the next Ahmed. Thank you for listening and wish you all the best. Good Shabbos. Bye.